The rain hammered down on Naval Air Station Oceana's main gate like bullets on sheet metal. Security lights carved harsh shadows across the asphalt as Admiral Marcus Kellerman's sedan idled behind a battered 1998 Honda Civic that had no business being in the priority lane. The vehicle's brake lights flickered erratically, one taillight held together with red tape. Kellerman checked his watch, 0547 hours. He was already late for the Joint Task Force briefing, and some civilian was holding up the line, fumbling with paperwork at the guard station. The guard, a young petty officer with precisely 2 months of gate duty experience, kept shaking his head. Through the rain-streaked windshield, Kellerman could see the driver's silhouette, slight build, hoodie pulled up against the weather. The guard's hand moved to his sidearm, not drawing but positioning. Kellerman's driver, Chief Warrant Officer Hayes, drummed fingers on the steering wheel. "Sir, we could use the alternate entrance." "No," Kellerman said quietly, watching. Something about the scene felt off. The way the guard's partner had stepped back. The angle of the duty officer emerging from the booth with his hand on his radio. The driver's door opened. A woman stepped out into the downpour. Mid-30s maybe, wearing a faded navy hoodie 3 sizes too large and cargo pants that had seen better deployments. Dark hair plastered to her face, she held up what looked like an expired dependent ID card, her other hand carefully visible and empty. The body language of someone who'd been in these situations before. Kellerman saw the guard's posture shift, aggressive now, demanding she return to her vehicle. She didn't move like a threat. She moved like someone who understood exactly how dangerous this moment could become if she made one wrong gesture. Through the rain, Kellerman caught her profile as she turned slightly, pointing toward something in her car, probably her child, given the car seat visible through the rear window. A single mother trying to get on base with expired credentials. The guard was calling for backup now. Hayes shifted the sedan into park. "Sir, this could take a while." Kellerman said nothing. 38 years in naval aviation had taught him that the most important moments often looked mundane from a distance. He watched the woman's hands, steady despite the cold rain, despite the guard's escalating tone, despite whatever circumstances had brought her to this gate at dawn with a child in the backseat and paperwork that didn't clear. She reached slowly into her pocket. That's when Kellerman saw it. Just a flash as the security lights caught the motion. On her right hand, fourth finger, a ring that made his chest tighten. Black titanium band, white gold inlay. The kind issued to aviators in a very specific unit from a very specific era. The kind you didn't buy in a jewelry store. The woman presented a second card to the guard. Even from 30 feet back, Kellerman saw the young petty officer's face go white as he read whatever was printed there. The guard's hand fell away from his weapon. He stepped back, snapped to attention so fast it looked painful. Then he saluted. In the backseat of the sedan, Kellerman felt the temperature drop despite the heater. Hayes had gone completely still. "Sir," the warrant officer said slowly, "that's not a dependent ID." "No," Kellerman replied, "it's not." The guard was speaking rapidly into his radio now, and within seconds the duty officer sprinted back to the booth. The woman stood in the rain, not moving, water streaming down her face as she waited. She hadn't returned the salute, just held that second card steady while 3 more security personnel arrived and formed up. One of them, a master at arms with 20 years visible in his bearing, took the card with both hands like it was sacred. Read it. Looked at the woman. Read it again. Then he did something Kellerman hadn't seen at a gate checkpoint in his entire career. The master-at-arms removed his cover despite the rain, held it over his heart, and bowed his head for 3 full seconds before returning it and saluting with a precision that would have satisfied the honor guard at Arlington. Hayes whispered, "What the hell is happening?" Kellerman knew. He'd known the moment he saw the ring. "She's not a dependent," he said quietly. "She's a pilot, and that's not a standard ID card." "Then what?" "It's a notification card," Kellerman interrupted. "The kind the Navy issues to widows of aviators killed in action." He paused, watching the guards coordinate. The kind they only issue when the circumstances are classified so far above top secret that the widow can't even tell her own family how her husband died. The barrier lifted. The Honda's engine coughed, struggling, then caught. As the vehicle rolled forward into the base, every guard at the checkpoint stood at attention. The woman drove past them without acknowledgement, her face expressionless, that too large hoodie probably her dead husband's last gift before a mission he never came home from. Hayes started to accelerate to follow through the checkpoint. "Wait," Kellerman ordered. He stepped out of the sedan into the rain, ignoring Hayes's protest. The master-at-arms saw the Admiral's stars on his collar and started to salute, but Kellerman waved him down. "The woman in the Honda, what name was on the card?" The master-at-arms hesitated. Security protocol, but Kellerman's expression left no room for debate. "Sir, the card identified her as Captain Raven Tamaz. Widow of Lieutenant Commander Elijah Tamaz died. Sir, the dates redacted. Cause of death redacted. Location redacted. Everything's redacted except one thing." "What thing?" The master-at-arms' voice dropped. "Her own service record, sir. Captain Tamaz isn't just a widow, she's an FA-18 pilot. 97 combat missions, 3 confirmed kills, call sign." He paused. "Call sign widow even before her husband died, sir. She flew Super Hornets with Strike Fighter Squadron 213, Blacklions." The rain seemed to intensify. Kellerman felt something cold spread through his chest that had nothing to do with the weather. Squadron 213. He knew that unit, knew their deployment history, and he knew exactly one mission they'd flown that would result in the kind of redactions covering Elijah Tamaz's death certificate. "When did she separate from service?" Kellerman asked. "She didn't, sir. She's still active duty. The card notes she's currently assigned to. It just says, administrative duties pending review. Timestamp shows that status was updated 4 years ago." 4 years. 4 years of administrative duties, which meant desk work. No flying, career death for a combat aviator. 4 years of raising a kid alone in base housing she probably couldn't afford on a captain's salary that should have been a commander's by now. 4 years of watching inferior pilots advance while she pushed papers because someone high up had decided she was too much of a liability after her husband's death. Kellerman walked back to the sedan. "Hayes, I need you to pull every file we have on Captain Raven Tamaz, everything. Service record, fitness reports, clearance status, current assignment, all of it. And I need it before the task force meeting." "Sir, that's in 20 minutes. "Then you'd better hurry." Inside the briefing room at 6:15, Kellerman sat at the head of a table surrounded by officers representing every branch. The operation they were planning, Operation Phantom Saber, required coordination between Navy strike fighters, Air Force tankers, Marine ground units, and SEAL insertion teams. It was ambitious, politically sensitive, and necessary. Intelligence indicated a high-value target would be vulnerable for exactly 18 hours, 3 days from now. The mission window was narrow. The target was in contested airspace. The risk level was catastrophic. "We need our best pilots," Colonel Sarah Bridger from the Air Force stated flatly. "No second-string players, no developmental assignments. This goes wrong, it's an international incident." Kellerman had been listening to personnel recommendations for 10 minutes. Every name suggested was competent, experienced, male. He thought about the Honda with the taped taillight, the woman standing in the rain with her hands visible, the ring that marked her as someone who'd already paid more than anyone in this room could imagine. "I have a name," he said quietly. The table went silent. "Captain Raven Tamaz, Strike Fighter Squadron 213, currently on administrative assignment." Commander Pierce, the Air Operations Officer, frowned. "Sir, I know that name. She's been pushing papers for 4 years. Hasn't logged combat hours since her husband died on a classified operation and the Navy decided she was emotionally compromised," Kellerman finished. What's her combat record? Pierce pulled up files on his tablet, scrolled, stopped. 97 combat missions, perfect maintenance record, 3 confirmed kills in air-to-air combat which, sir, that's rare for Super Hornet pilots. Most of our air superiority work is done by F-22s. She must have been in the right place at the right time or the wrong place. Or she's that good, Kellerman countered. What are her qualification scores? More scrolling. Pierce's eyebrows rose. Top 2% in her class at Pensacola. Top 5% at Fallen. Instructor qualified on both the Legacy Hornet and Super Hornet. She's got tanking quals, carrier quals obviously, and, he paused. She's one of 12 women in the Navy qualified for combat search and rescue in hostile territory. Sir, this record is exceptional. Then why is she flying a desk? The room went quiet. Everyone knew the answer, but nobody wanted to say it. Finally, Captain Jennifer Ortiz from personnel spoke up. Her psychological evaluation after her husband's death recommended administrative duties. The evaluating psychiatrist noted unresolved trauma and potential risk factors for decision-making under stress. Who was the psychiatrist? Ortiz checked her file. Commander Donald Pritchard. Kellerman knew the name. Pritchard had a reputation for conservative evaluations, especially with female aviators. 3 years ago, he'd been quietly reassigned after an investigation into gender bias, but the damage he'd done to dozens of careers remained in official files. When was Captain Tomaz's last evaluation? 4 months after her husband's death, sir. Nothing since. Nothing in 4 years. The initial evaluation placed her in administrative status. Nobody followed up. She's been forgotten, essentially, filed away. Forgotten. A combat pilot with a perfect record. Forgotten because one biased psychiatrist decided she was too emotional 6 months after her husband died on a mission she probably helped plan. Kellerman felt anger building, but he kept his voice level. Get her qualified for Phantom Sabre. I want her flying again within 48 hours. Sir, Commander Pierce objected carefully. With all respect, we can't put someone who hasn't flown combat in 4 years on a mission this sensitive. She'd need refresher training, simulator time, psychological clearance. Then get it done, Kellerman said flatly. That's an order. The room shifted uncomfortably. Colonel Bridger leaned forward. Admiral, I understand wanting to give her a second chance, but this isn't charity work. If she can't perform. She'll perform, Kellerman interrupted. I saw her at the gate this morning. You know what I noticed? Control. Complete control in a situation where most people would have panicked or gotten angry. The guards were aggressive, she had her kid in the car, and she handled it like she was talking down an SA-15 radar lock. He paused. That's not someone who's lost their edge. That's someone who's been waiting for the chance to use it again. Or someone who's learned to hide their trauma, Ortiz said quietly. Then test her, Kellerman replied. Put her in the simulator, run her through the profiles. If she can't handle it, fine, we'll move on. But I'm not writing off a pilot with her record because some psychiatrist with a bias problem decided she was too fragile 4 years ago. He stood, ending the discussion. Captain Tomaz reports to flight operations at 1300 hours. Make it happen. After the meeting dispersed, Kellerman returned to his office and finally looked at the file Hayes had compiled. The photograph showed a woman in dress whites, younger but with the same serious eyes he'd seen through the rain. Her husband's photo was clipped beside hers. Lieutenant Commander Elijah Tomaz, DEVGRU liaison, assigned to a joint aviation task force. Both of them had been part of something classified. Both had worn the call sign Widow at different times, though for Raven, the name had been prophetic in the worst way. The mission report from Elijah's death was a blank page. Literally, everything redacted except the date, 4 years and 7 months ago, and the location, Northern Territory, hostile airspace, coordinates classified. The casualty notification listed non-recoverable remains, which meant whatever had happened, there hadn't been a body to send home. just a flag and a notification card that marked Raven as someone who knew secrets she could never share. Kellerman read her fitness reports. Every single one before Elijah's death was flawless. Every report after was perfunctory, barely a paragraph. The kind of evaluation you write when you're documenting someone's existence but not their performance. 4 years of career purgatory. His phone rang. Kellerman. "Sir, it's Commander Pierce. I've got Captain Tamaz on the line. She's asking why she's been summoned to flight operations." "Put her through." A pause, then a woman's voice, careful and controlled. "This is Captain Tamaz, sir. There seems to be some confusion about my orders." "No confusion, Captain. You're being evaluated for return to flight status." Silence, long enough that Kellerman thought the connection had dropped. Then quietly, "Sir, I've been administratively assigned for 4 years. My flight status was suspended." "And now it's being reviewed," Kellerman interrupted, "unless you're not interested in flying again." Another pause. "Sir, I have a daughter, childcare arrangements, I can't just." "The Navy will provide support services. You'll have access to base childcare and priority housing. This isn't a request, Captain. It's an order." "What's the mission?" Smart question. The kind that separated pilots who flew from pilots who survived. Classified until you're cleared. But I'll tell you this, it's the kind of mission where we need the best we have. Your record suggests you're exactly that. "My record is 4 years old, sir." "Then prove it's still accurate. 1,300 hours flight operations. Don't be late." He hung up before she could respond, sat back in his chair and wondered if he just made a brilliant decision or a catastrophic mistake. Outside his window, the rain had stopped. The flight line gleamed under morning sun, rows of Super Hornets waiting like patient predators. Somewhere out there, Raven Tamaz was probably sitting in that beat-up Honda, staring at her phone, trying to figure out if this was real or some kind of cruel joke. Kellerman hoped it was real, because Operation Phantom Saber needed more than good pilots. It needed someone who understood loss intimately enough to never let it happen to someone else. It needed someone who'd been through hell and come out knowing exactly what was worth fighting for. It needed Widow. At 12:55 hours, Captain Raven Tamaz walked into the flight operations building wearing a flight suit that looked like it had been stored in a closet for years, the creases sharp from lack of use. She carried a helmet bag over one shoulder and moved with the deliberate efficiency of someone who'd practiced this entrance a dozen times in her head. The duty officer looked up, started to ask for identification, then saw her name tag and stood reflexively. Kellerman watched from the observation deck. He positioned himself there deliberately, wanting to see her arrival without the performance of an official greeting. She checked in at the desk, her voice too quiet to hear but her body language confident. When directed to the ready room, she turned with the kind of spatial awareness that told him she'd spent time in hostile environments, eyes tracking exits, distances, potential threats before settling into a neutral scan pattern. Commander Pierce joined him at the observation window. "She's here. You really going through with this?" "She showed up," Kellerman replied. "That's more than most people would do after 4 years of being told they're not needed." "Or it means she's desperate." "Maybe. Or maybe she's been waiting for someone to remember she exists." Below, Raven entered the ready room where 4 other pilots waited, the team being assembled for Phantom Saber. All men, all younger than her, all active combat pilots with recent deployment cycles. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Smoke Sullivan saw her first, said something Kellerman couldn't hear. The others turned. Their expressions ranged from curious to skeptical. One, Lieutenant Jake Razor Martinez, crossed his arms and leaned back in his chair, the universal gesture of judgment. Raven ignored them, took a seat in the back row, set her helmet bag down precisely, then folded her hands in her lap and waited. "She's not trying to prove anything," Pierce observed. "No," Kellerman agreed. "She's letting them underestimate her. That's tactical." The briefing officer entered, Captain Amy Walsh, one of the Navy's top strike warfare coordinators. She saw Raven and paused just for a second, then continued to the front of the room. "Gentlemen, Captain, we're here to evaluate candidates for a time-sensitive operation. You've all been selected for your records and qualifications. What we need to determine today is which of you can handle the specific challenges of this mission profile." She brought up a map. Hostile territory, surface-to-air threat rings overlapping like deadly petals, a narrow approach corridor that threaded through mountains and radar coverage. Target is a high-value individual who will be vulnerable for approximately 18 hours, 3 days from now. Access requires penetrating integrated air defense systems, including S-300 and S-400 platforms, flying nap of the Earth through terrain that allows zero margin for error, and egressing through the same corridor while potentially under pursuit. Smoke whistled low. "That's a suicide run." "That's a precision run," Walsh corrected, "which is why we're being selective about who flies it. Today's evaluation consists of simulator runs using this exact profile. You'll each get 2 attempts. We're measuring approach accuracy, threat reaction time, target identification speed, and egress survival. Questions?" Razor raised his hand. "Why is Captain Tamaz here? No disrespect, ma'am, but I heard you've been out of the cockpit for years." The room went silent. Every eye turned to Raven. She didn't flinch, didn't show anger or embarrassment, just met Razor's eyes and said quietly, "That's correct. So I suppose I'd better not waste anyone's time if I can't perform." "We're all wondering," another pilot chimed in, Lieutenant Owen Tango Park. "No offense, but there are combat current pilots who'd kill for this slot. Why pull someone from admin?" Walsh's expression hardened. "That's above your pay grade, Lieutenant. Captain Tamaz is here because I requested her specifically. If you have concerns about your own performance, I suggest you focus on that instead of her qualifications." It was a deflection, but an effective one. The room's attention shifted back to the briefing. Kellerman made a note of who'd spoken up and who'd stayed quiet. Razor and Tango were confident, bordering on arrogant. Good pilots, but the type who believed their recent deployment time made them untouchable. Smoke was more measured, watching Raven with curiosity rather than judgment. The simulator runs began. Razor went first, launching into the profile with aggressive confidence. He made it through the approach corridor but took 2 simulated SAM hits during egress and died in a fireball over the border. Tango performed better, clean approach, good weapons delivery, but his egress was sloppy and he triggered radar alerts that would have compromised the entire operation.